the scams are so sophisticated that the most brilliant people fall for them and then become really embarrassed about it. So your social connection it's good for your physical, makes you live longer. It helps with chronic disease. It prevents people from taking advantage of you. And it only occurs by being proactive. Because when we live long enough, we outlive our friends. My mom at 96 has outlived, I would say, 99% of her friends.
This is the Angel Next Door podcast, where we will talk about all things angel investing, what it is, who does it, how do we find them, what does it mean to invest in an early stage company. If you have ever wondered how you can affect the change you want to see in the world, then tune in to learn more. In today's episode, I'm talking with my friend and fellow writing workshop colleague, Dr. Kerry Burnight, also known as America's Gerontologist. She is the author of the recently released book, JoySpan, which upon release was on the USA Today and the New York Times bestseller lists. She joins me for a deeply insightful and uplifting conversation about aging, connection, and what it means to truly thrive at any age. Kerry shares powerful stories from her groundbreaking work in elder abuse prevention, reveals the surprising role of loneliness in our well-being, and offers actionable ways to create meaningful connection no matter where you are in life. Plus, you'll hear heartwarming wisdom from her 96-year-old mom, Betty, and practical advice on using technology to stay engaged, safe, and curious. So whether you're in your 20s, 90s, or anywhere in between, you'll leave this episode inspired to embrace each stage of life with curiosity, intention, and most of all, joy. Dr. Kerry Burnight, I am so excited to have you on the Angel Next Door podcast. Welcome.
I've been looking forward to this.
Oh, so good. So start off, let's talk a little bit about your background. You are America's Gerontologist. So tell us how that all came about.
Well, I am a gerontologist, so I got my PhD in the study of aging. So it includes the economic parts, the sociological, physical, even spiritual parts of growing older. And I have absolutely loved it. And then the America's Gerontologist part came very unofficially because I started posting about longevity and then featured my mom. And then somebody had me on a show and said America's Gerontologist, and it quote stuck. So
Nice.
It was there was no official vote.
Right. But I love it. You and I know each other because we were in a book writing class together, workshop with AJ Harper. Awesome. And I just loved everything that you were talking about. And I don't know that you tried really hard to get as many followers as you have on TikTok, Instagram, and all these things. But people were just so drawn to you, what you were talking about. I think in a lot of cases, aging, we think, I don't know, do I really want to talk about that? It's almost like anything that has to do with getting closer to death is a little scary, right? But your mom, who's 95, is she 96 yet?
96.
96. I was going to say, I thought I saw a birthday recently. Yes. Okay. So Betty, who's now 96, is just always teaching us something. And it's sometimes just the most basic kind of thing, but it's so wise. It's so much wisdom that she shares. So tell us a little bit about how that has all come about and how many lives you've affected with it.
Well, I think that there are millions of older adults who are inspiring and encouraging and hopeful. And in my practice, I had the privilege of meeting them. And people don't really want to be recorded and in that setting. And so I would see all this and I would be encouraged, but it was hard to share. A captive audience, my mom, I asked her one day, could I flip the camera and just record a little bit of you talking just naturally? And at first she said, no, I don't think I want to do that. And I said, I understand, but if you change your mind, I would just love to do that on a regular visit. And when she realized that people are interested, because I think fundamentally we all know that we are all aging and we wonder what our old age would look like. And she just started sharing little tiny 1-minute bits of things on her mind, and it resonated with people, and people started following along. And for all the ills, and there are many, of social media, I think there are some good opportunities to connect with other people on social media as well.
Yeah, I've heard so many things about the older generation just wanting to know more. They're watching YouTube videos. They are going on to social media to find connection or people who are like them. It's not all teenagers or 20-year-olds or 20-somethings doing things, really.
Listening to podcasts. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I know I love your podcast, and I know it's beneficial at every age to be continuing to learn and grow. So it's important.
Yes. So tell us more about what prompted you to write the book JoySpan.
So when I was a professor in geriatric medicine and gerontology, I specialized in elder abuse, neglect, and financial exploitation. And my colleague at work and I started this nation's first elder abuse forensic center. And through the forensic center, we every single day for 2 decades were working with people who were really suffering. And the suffering that I saw, it just burned my eyeballs. And I would drive home from work crying so many days. And there was this pivotal time where I was on an airplane on the way home, and my partner and I had gotten an award from the US Attorney General. It was called the US Victims Award or something for our work with victims of elder abuse. And I was sitting on the plane and I just felt this horrible feeling of it's not the end to remediate cases of mistreatment after they occur because the damage has been done. How can we take what we know from the literature and get further upstream so that people are not vulnerable to opportunists and to prevent this from happening in the first place? And I had this kind of midlife crisis where I thought, how can I find out how to protect people so that we can strengthen ourselves for these long lives? Because it's so unprecedented that many of us can expect to live to 100. We're talking about 30 bonus years. And currently, everything is our physical selves. Somehow, if we just do enough cardio and strength and agility and flexibility and have enough protein and weighted vests and green drinks and magnesium, that somehow everything will be okay. And what I know for sure is that's an important start. We want to live long lifespan. We want to live life that are as physically healthy as possible, health span. But then the quality of those long lives, we can no longer leave that up to chance. We need to be using what is proven in the literature and proven in the lived experience of older adults in order to get on that path. And that is what prompted the sitting down and slogging for years over a book to try to give people that information in a convenient and useful, practical format.
Wow. Everything that you did at the forensic center, it sounds like unbelievably important work and yet heartbreaking all at the same time. What do you think is one of the biggest problems that causes so much elder care to go or elder abuse to go on in the world?
Yes. And I like that you say in the world because it is not a uniquely American problem. Unfortunately, it really is worldwide. One of the biggest predictors of elder abuse, neglect, self-neglect, and financial exploitation is disconnection, also called loneliness. So we know from the research that loneliness is as deadly as smoking 14 cigarettes a day. And when it comes to elder abuse, people can take advantage of other people when you're not connected. So I can give you an example of a man who I also wrote about in the book, whose name was Harry, and he not only allowed me to use his story, but he wanted me to. And he was brilliant. He was a Green Beret. He attended Stanford University. He had a very successful career. He cared for his wife through her Alzheimer's disease journey. And after she passed away, he didn't replenish his friendships and connections, and his daughter moved away, and he really found himself alone. And in being alone, this opened him up for people to take advantage. And it happened in a few different ways. The first was a woman posed as somebody who was interested in him romantically, and they were dating, and she then went about draining his bank account. And when it got so that he was going to lose his house, she left. And then even in that remaining time, as the house was going into foreclosure, he continued to receive phone calls from other people who were strangers they were drawing upon his philanthropic way, and they were saying that they were from nonprofits and they needed his support. And over the course of about a 13-month period, he lost over $600,000.
Oh my.
And really, the day that I met him, he was in the hospital, and they were saying it was from dehydration and malnutrition, which it was on the physical level. But when you dug into what was going on, it was as a result of the shame and heartbreak he felt by being duped by these criminals. And sometimes the criminals are people that we don't know, but it's also the case that can also be family members. And that's something that people don't usually think about or like to talk about. So linking back on how to prevent it, what it means is that connection is critically important. And when you are connected, you can say to a friend or a neighbor or a relative or someone, it's interesting. Somebody said this. And then your friend can say, nah, that sounds like that is not true. That sounds like a scam. And these scams are so sophisticated that the most brilliant people fall for them and then become really embarrassed about it. So your social connection is it's good for your physical, makes you live longer. It helps with chronic disease. It prevents people from taking advantage of you. And it only occurs by being proactive. Because when we live long enough, we outlive our friends. My mom at 96 has outlived, I would say, 99% of her friends. So if you aren't proactive about making new friends, cultivating friends, being the one who makes the plan, picks up the phone, offers to take somebody to chemo, remembers that it's the 5-year anniversary of someone's father's death, that's what's required. And when patients come to me and say that they're lonely, I say, tell me about it. And they say, well, nobody calls me, nobody visits, I don't get invited to any parties anymore. We have to flip it and say, that is the norm unless you are the one who is that friend who is creating the groups, who is texting for no reason, who is picking up the phone even when it's uncomfortable and saying, it's been about 10 years. How are you?
I love that. And I think it really does matter too where people live. Sometimes they think, oh, I'm going to stay even after a spouse passes or things like that. Oh, I'm going to stay in the same house, but they're not surrounded by the same type of community. But yet if they did, sometimes, oh, I don't want to go live in a home. It's like there's all these connotations around assisted living places. But in a lot of cases, it can really create a lot of community and relationships that you would have never had because you're there eating dinner with people or playing games or whatever you're doing.
Yes, and that's a good point for regardless of what you choose. So if you choose, like my mom, to stay in your own home alone in the community, you need to really be proactive because she had to really look up old friends that she lost contact with and create, and then go next door and knock on her next door neighbor and say, hi, I'm bringing over some lemons, and then really cultivate that. And that's true even in assisted living or in skilled or independent congregate living, is that you still need to be pretty darn proactive in order to create those relationships. Because I have a few patients who live in assisted living and they thought it would just be by default, by being surrounded by people, they would be included. But they said, I'm lonely even though I'm surrounded by people. We need to really think, well, what is your role in making meaningful connections? And it is being interested in other people is what makes you interesting. So it's like finding out, okay, my next door neighbor, either in the community or in an assisted living facility, is going through this or is interested in this. How can I become interested in them? Because I think our collective self-absorption, where you could think about your health stuff all the time or your financial stuff or your whatever, that is not a contributor to connection. It has to be our authentic interest in other people.
Yes. And I think that goes back to a lot of what we're seeing now with technology and human interaction, just at every age, every level. Technology has taken over so many parts of our lives, but yet at the end of the day, even after everything we went through with the COVID pandemic and people being online and thinking, oh, this is so much better, I don't have to travel. But as we're coming out of it and we're like 5 years past, it's like people really want that in person. They want to be able to talk to people. They want to have that level of connection.
Yes, exactly. And we need to create that. And people will say, I want that, but I don't know how to get it because I'm isolated right now. I'm at a phase where maybe I'm a new widow. I'm living somewhere different. And I always say just really to start small, is that all these little small interactions with people do matter and do add up. So at the supermarket, taking an interest in somebody in the checkout line who works there and making sure you're learning their name, introducing yourself. And then the next time you come, you could say, oh, I remembered, Jill, that you were saying you're sending your daughter off to high school. How is that going? And then sometimes even being bold enough to say, want to grab a cup of coffee? And then kissing a lot of frogs, because sometimes it won't be a fit with somebody. But what I know is that there are so many people who are craving connection, all of us, that if you put yourself out there enough, you will find a connection, and that eradicates the loneliness and isolation of two people. So it's when you are bold enough to do it, I have seen it really benefit two people.
That's awesome. Yeah. So tell us how you feel about technology and how that can help the aging population, and what are some of the things they need to look out for, what you were talking about earlier with the abuse?
Yes. So when we talk about the aging population, think all of us, because there's not a single person who is not aging. So every one of us is the aging population, and technology for every one of us is beneficial and potentially harmful. And so being aware of, I'll start with the harmful parts to it. So it is really easy to feel left out because you see all these people putting on social media all the best parts of their life. So it looks like they're just in a constant state of margaritas on the beach, which no one is. And so just keeping in mind what you are seeing on social media is not the lived experience of anyone. That's one. And then also knowing that there are people who are actively working to scam us out of our money. And when things seem too good to be true, or when they say, oh, I'm calling from this organization and I need your information, that we have to be skeptical because it is a multi-billion-dollar industry scamming people. That's the dark side. That doesn't mean to throw the baby out with the bathwater, because there are good things about technology too. Okay, so as right now, we are in different areas and yet we're connecting and seeing each other and talking over Zoom. I have a lot of families that I work with. They are capitalizing on that. So they'll do a thing where once a week, the family jumps on to do a group Zoom call, and they'll even make it a game, or they'll watch a TV show together.
Nice.
Get pretty creative with it, or just calling each other every day. It's low tech, but I call every single day. I call my mom and we talk about nothing for half hour to an hour. And it benefits both of us, and it makes us feel really close. And anything that you could possibly be interested in, you can find other people who are interested in it. So in my book, I talk about this. There are 4 pillars of JoySpan, like things that the research shows us that we need to do. And one of them is we need to make sure that we continue to grow. And in order to do that, you have to make sure that you're finding what you are curious about. And so we proactively go through all these different areas. What am I a little curious about? But then you can go on to such things as Meetup and anything you can think of, from interest in Bitcoin to interested in antiques, interested in tap dancing, whatever it is. You can find other people who are also interested. And then they have these Meetup groups that you can do online if you're not mobile, or you could go meet up in person. So like the excuse that you've done it all, or that all the best of your life is behind you, is a real hindrance. But it takes work to find out humans are intended to continue to grow all the way till your last breath, and that we need to find a way to do that.
Oh, I love that. One of the things that came out when your book was coming out was that, speaking of scamming people, is that on Amazon, some of these AI things will create a workbook. I think in your case, they even created a cookbook, and they used your name. They used the cover of the book. All of these things are obviously they're not good, meaning they're not well written. But they're literally taking information and just trying to regurgitate it into an AI fashion.
Yes.
But I think your book is basically set up so that there wasn't a need necessarily for a workbook. It was that everything was in there that people needed. And so I just want to kind of caution people that if you're out there, if you're online and you're like, oh my gosh, Kerry also made a workbook, it's so amazing. Like, just know that in some cases, that's really not what happened.
I'm so glad that you bring that up, because that is the case with all authors.
Yes.
It takes us decades to write a book, and it takes minutes for AI to make a dupe copy of it, and people don't know. And I think it is incumbent upon us as authors to let people know. So you've inspired me, because I did one little video, but it's time for me to do another one and say, there is no need to purchase any additional workbook, because I put everything that you need in the one book. That's all that you need, because all the exercises and the practices are in that. So you will see me today. I'll be wearing the same sweater, because I'm going to hold it up and remind people, because you don't want people to waste their time on things that aren't real. And unfortunately, that's the new reality. And some of them, really, I had to laugh out loud, because they used an AI picture. So it looked like me, but it wasn't me. And I was wearing some kind of like Harry Potter uniform.
Oh no.
With a tie. And my hair was really long and I looked really young. And then it was like some kind of like personal biography, I'm sure filled with made up things. I just thought, this is so ridiculous that people are doing this, but they are.
It is crazy and again, so like sometimes this isn't even a person who's trying to necessarily scam. Obviously behind the scenes there is, but like it could just be, oh my gosh, somebody just got duped by buying something that wasn't even real.
Yeah.
So
We should talk to our friends.
Yeah.
If you are in doubt, run it by somebody. And if you don't know who to run it by, I have loved on social media, you can do a direct message to people. So people have said, hey, Kerry, do you have a workbook and a cookbook?
Right.
Then I could just say, absolutely not. So these like personal connections of making with people, and that people welcome personal connections. Like, it doesn't bother people or anything. It's emboldened me to reach out to people now and say, gosh, your book meant a lot to me and I wanted to let you know. And there's just people on the other side who go, thank you for telling me that.
Right. Exactly. I know, as authors, it's like we're sitting here by ourselves writing books and getting them out into the world. And when we hear that it had a good effect on somebody, we love to hear about it.
I know. And supporting authors is everything. And I've been so grateful to have you as a friend and other friends in our group, and AJ Harper's group has really made such a big difference.
They have. And we cannot leave this episode without saying that JoySpan was out in the world for all of about 10 minutes, and it hit the USA Today bestseller list and the New York Times bestseller list. Amazing. So
that is a case of the topic is that people are recognizing that we are all living longer lives, and that there isn't one of us who wouldn't benefit from understanding the research of what makes some people thrive and some people suffer. And when people ask, what age is this book targeted at? What I'm finding is that people are really thinking, oh gosh, this is so good for me to start in my 20s and 30s.
Yes.
And it's also not too late to start in your 90s. So I think it is a little analogous to the question, when should I start exercising? You should start as early as possible. So it's not an older person thing. This is what will improve your life between the ages of 23 and 24 will also improve your life between 93 and 94. So I would start with the book for your own aging journey, regardless of your current age. And then if it resonates, it can be a great conversation builder with your parents or grandparents or your spouse. I'm finding a lot of times people will say, I'm continuing to be engaged in life, but my spouse has given up and is in the recliner lounger all day long. And I am encouraging both of us to read this and have some discussions about it instead of putting our head in the sand about the fact that we're going to live longer than we might have thought.
Exactly. Well, Dr. Kerry Burnight, thank you so much for coming on to this podcast episode. And we will put all of the information about how people can get the book and find out more about your work in the show notes.
Well, I think that it would be an excellent compliment. If I'm sure people have already read it, but do good by doing well is exactly in line with this. And it is 100% the case that by making sure that we're using our lives in a way that it feels good and does good makes a difference. So if you haven't already, we need to start with your book.
Thank you. Thanks for listening. To connect with me, visit my website at marciadawood.com. And please subscribe, follow, and leave a review. It helps the podcast get seen by more people. And remember, you can also find the Angel Next Door podcast on YouTube too. And if you're looking to learn more about investing in the changes you want to see in the world, sign up for Ann and Bill Payne's ACA Angel University classes. Go to theangelcapitalassociation.org, all one word, to find out the schedule. And classes are now available on demand. Many classes are offered, everything from angel investing basics, which include fundamentals, risk, due diligence, term sheets, valuations, returns and portfolio strategy, and even a class on group formation. There's even a deeper dive where you can get advanced classes, including capitalization tables, startup boards, and exit strategies. If you're not already a member of the Angel Capital Association, you can become one for a low price that will give you unparalleled access to discounts, free webinars with a huge archive of content, networking opportunities, and much more. We'd love to have you join us. All content for this website is informational and not intended to serve as legal, tax, accounting, or investing advice. While Marcia, that's me, does serve on the SEC Small Business Capital Formation Advisory Committee, my views are my own and not the views of the SEC or my fellow colleagues on the committee. Our speakers and hosts are thoughtfully selected for their educational value, but their opinions are their own and do not necessarily represent the views of the host, me, or the Angel Capital Association, and neither specifically endorse the use of presenters' products or services. Listeners of the podcast should consult their own tax, investing, legal, or accounting advisors before making important financial decisions. All warranties, including accuracy, completeness, and suitability for specific purpose, are disclaimed.